of the whole to order. And if we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Doing roll call, everyone is present except for Dan Collison, who is excused and is hoping to make it for the council meeting tonight. Do you know, is he planning to be here for planning or just council probably?
He did not say, but I can
Okay.
try to find out.
All right. All right. I don't see any public comments at all.
Excuse me, Mayor. I apologize. He did say he'd make it for planning as well.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll move right on to business item E1, Heritage Boulevard lighting options.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The city has a lighting infill plan out to the year 2030. Currently, this year's lighting infill plan would be to install a light on Whiskey Road by Mobile Gas Station and another one by the Asani Indoor Arena. There is $12,000, $306 in the CIP plan to make that happen. Staff was asked to look into the possibility of adding streetlights for the crosswalk on Heritage by the Quick Trip. Reached out to Connectus Energy for those lighting options. A light could be added to a pole, an existing pole at 401 East Dual Square Mall, and another one at 400 West Dual, which would be Nick and Drew's. For a 8-foot pole, it would be $914 each. For a 14-foot pole, it would be $1,100 each. A light pole would be required at 309 Heritage, so a pole would be needed there. The cost of that additional pole would be $3,040 for a 30-foot fiberglass pole, or $2,872 for a 25-foot fiberglass pole. Both of those would have an 8-foot Cobra arm, of whichever option you wanted. The year 2027 would be to add a pole at 120 Heritage, and that pole would cost $7,500, and a pole would need to be added at that location as well. The other part of the question was to, if we put a pole in or a light in, what would it cost to have it moved at a later date? And they couldn't provide that because there'd be too many variables in there to know what that would cost.
So you'd said that there was two options, an 8-foot and a 14-foot, correct? Arm for the 401 and 400 East Dual Boulevard or whatever?
Correct.
So in your experience, is it necessary to have a 14-foot? Does it provide much extra coverage?
It all depends on how far the pole is off the road.
Okay.
I think also that it would only affect it, the further out the light's gonna get less on the sidewalk rather than more on the sidewalk along the street.
Sure.
Yeah, that side of the road, the north side, there isn't the sidewalk, so.
So I guess I would be in favor of potentially looking at light options there, but I don't think we should put in any poles. I think putting in poles right now when we have we're expected to do some sort of traffic control there. I think putting up actual poles is gonna be a waste of money because they might have to come down. But I think it would be good to try and get some lights out there, like on the existing poles. If that makes sense.
Mayor and Council, I did talk to the county engineer, Justin Bergerson, and ask him his thoughts, because it would be the county's road that we would be potentially requesting to put lights on. They did not have any plans currently that he was aware of to install lighting infill along County Road 5, being that's their road. We would think possibly that would come from their side, and there would be them eating some of that cost. But he said he wasn't aware of it. He was going to look into it further to see if he could find something. He did suggest that if there is some kind of project that happens, maybe it's the roundabout/signal that we're hoping at East Dual, that there should be some lighting included with that. However, we don't know that quite yet. I do think that project's moving a little bit forward, as we did get the scope back from WSB, and he shared that with Jason Cook and myself. However, it was missing some of the critical information that we had requested, so we still have to wait for answers on that. He said, should the city want to put lights up on County Road 5 Heritage, that we could probably come to some kind of agreement that if we were to install them, turn them over to them, and maybe they would pay the electrical costs, but he couldn't say for sure of any kind of cost share until it was evaluated further.
And I don't think I brought it up last time we talked about this, but are there any plans or ideas for, I guess, the east side of East Dual Boulevard going on Heritage Boulevard, like towards 65, because it's really dark there too? Was that looked at all? I know at the last meeting we talked about it, I didn't necessarily think about that, but I've been driving through there a lot more, and it's still dark on that side as well, like between Quick Trip and McDonald's.
Yeah, it's in the lighting infill plan, I think it's 2028, 2029, 2030, some different years on that map that you have there, those lights be added at that time.
Okay, is there any possibility to add those sooner?
Councilman Merrill, I think it's all the desire of the council.
Okay.
We did, when we had that whole infill study kind of looked at with our engineer, he did look at County Road 5 just to see where he would put them from his engineering standpoint. So we plugged him into the year, should the city want to move forward with that. But it really is the desire of the council of if they wanted to adjust those dates or move it up, move others back, and so forth.
Okay, and is there any, I guess if you could give a guess on when we might see something done with that intersection? Would it be a year, 5 years, 10 years? I mean, is it looking good for next year? I mean, is there any guess at all?
We did ask that question, Mr. Cook and myself today, and we were hopeful for next year. However, he thought it would be, the county engineer thought it'd be realistic more in that 2028 year, which 2027, 2028 is where they projected to have work done along County Road 5 through the city of Isani, and so they would try to potentially match it up. Now, nothing has gone forward through the commissioners board, so we don't know for sure where that would lie. We're hoping to get information before the county board, before this finalization of their next budget cycle, so we can at least get it on the radar and get it in a plan. However, that was his guesstimate.
Okay, so with that engineering plan that we've been waiting on, or analysis or whatever, if they push that back to 2028, are we gonna have to redo that again? The traffic study stuff?
I don't think so. I think that all the data that they have is only going to get increased. It's the problem, if we were to call it a problem, is only going to increase. We have I shared all of our industrial lots are completely full now. We're just gonna have increase of traffic. Quick Trip is one of the heaviest used within the area or the state even. So it's just gonna become a greater issue. So no, I don't think that we're gonna have to redo any study.
Okay.
If it shows that it's warranted now, which most cases it seems to, I don't think we'll have to redo any study.
Okay.
Usually those studies are good for 10 years anyway.
Well, and I think it's a way for us to figure out how we're gonna move forward with the project, but once we decide to move forward with the project, it's just a matter of how we find funding for it.
That would be the problem with moving these dates up on these lights. They're all scheduled on budgeted for those years. We move them up, now we're increasing our budget now. So I don't disagree with you. Look, I've always had a sore spot for lack of lights on the streets. But, I mean, it's an uphill battle. It's, you start raising taxes to cover them, because somebody's gotta pay for them.
Sure. I didn't know if we could prioritize this area versus others is,
Well, and that was kind of something that I had mentioned before when we talked about this, is that I don't have any problem prioritizing that area over the other ones. I don't drive on the other areas a whole lot at night, you know, over by Mobile there and up by, the BMX arena. You know, those are the two spots that are scheduled for this year. You know, I don't know, I mean, do we have a lot of foot traffic and stuff, you know, I mean, during those times? I don't know, I mean,
You do have a lot of foot traffic over there. There is
Yeah.
on the Isani Parkway, there's no sidewalks, so people are walking on the road at night there.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there is traffic. And a lot of people walk up to the mobile gas station.
yeah, right. You know, because it is a bad spot over there by Quick Trip for sure, because you get all those people crossing at night to go to Quick Trip from the apartment buildings, and I mean, plus it's just where you probably would cross if you were coming from anywhere in town too, so. But yeah, I mean, it is, and it's tough to see people.
I had another creative idea. So I go to the gym at any time there, and sometimes they have their parking lot lights on. I don't know if it's until like 10 or 11 o'clock, and those are so dang bright that it lights up the road you can actually see, but they shut off at a certain time. I don't know if maybe we could see if we could get a hold of the owners of, what is that, 120, the strip mall there, to maybe see if we could like flip the bill for the electric if they left the lights on, because that illuminates the street and the sidewalk well, and we wouldn't have to add infrastructure, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a potential option.
You'd be contacting Dave and Julie Diego. That's who owns that, so.
I can have our engineer, Mr. Cook, look into, so they do have a certain number of lumens that have to be contained within their site. and not overspilling. Now, maybe it's an overspill that we would want. I'd have to look into that
Right.
further, but I definitely could do that.
Okay,
Because when that was built, there probably wasn't a big push on the light overspill.
sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're only talking, if we would just wanted to put one light there for $914 and it's not a pole,
Right,
I mean, that's not a whole lot of money over what we're talking about spending. I mean, that's not, I'd be okay spending that.
yeah, especially at 400, 400, because we're not gonna probably have traffic controls or road changes that far down, so that one's gonna stay forever.
Well, I was thinking more at 401 there where the Quick Trip,
Sure.
where people are crosswalking there, but,
I mean, yeah, that would be good there too, and in worst case, we could always take it down and move it. It's not like it's only a one-time use, I mean, they're built to last, so.
right. Why, are you thinking there's more traffic at the 400 intersection there, or?
No, I'm just thinking, we're not gonna change the road that far down for the traffic change, so that light could stay there permanently.
Oh, yeah,
You know
I
what
see
I
what you're
mean?
saying.
So it's
Yeah.
there, it's not gonna be messed with by a traffic control down at East Dual Boulevard, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I would like to see the one at 400 for sure, because it's gonna help either way. And then the 401 would be, I guess, a discussion item. I would like to see it there, but that's up to everybody else.
I don't know. I mean, Travis, you got any ideas on when they're patrolling? I mean, were they,
Well, definitely the 401 location has the biggest public safety concern,
yeah,
taking everything out of consideration as far as what's gonna happen to that intersection, but that crosswalk during the daytime is a challenge as well. So add nighttime to it, it's, yeah, I'd say that out of all our crosswalks, all our pedestrian issues in the whole city, that crosswalk right there is our biggest concern
at 401.
at 401, whether it's daytime or nighttime, but obviously nighttime's even worse.
Yep.
I make an awful lot of right turns out of that spot, and it makes me nervous every time.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I brought this up, because when I did that police ride along, the officer said the same thing, that every time he drives down the road, it makes him nervous, so he would like to see lighting there, which I totally agree with.
So the direction, should I reach out to the county engineer and see what permits we need to pull, and make sure that it's something that they are okay with looking at as an option for 400 and 401, just to see what that, if there's that ability, and then if they are, and I'm sure that that would have to go before the county board, if they are okay with it, then we'd have to work on an agreement for who's gonna pay for the electrical and such, but maybe, I would hope that we could work something out if we paid for the install.
Sure, so I would, if we're gonna go that far to get the county involved, I guess I would like to see more on the east side of this map. So from Quick Trip to McDonald's, because that's really dark too, and you do have pedestrians there. So, I mean, if we're gonna do all that with the county, we might as well see if they'll get in on the rest of them too, so maybe we can do a few of them and get the problem solved now versus having to go back and forth again.
Yeah, I mean, I really only think that the problem is at that 401 intersection there, because that's where you have people crossing the highway, you know? I don't know that it's really, I mean, it is darker, you know, down toward McDonald's, but I don't know that it's really a safety hazard necessarily that it's dark, you know what I mean?
Travis, what do you think on that? Between Quick Trip and McDonald's, I mean,
There's not as much like, you're not crossing Heritage between Quick Trip and McDonald's. That's the nice thing. I mean, in theory, you shouldn't be crossing there. But we do have a lot of pedestrian traffic east to west.
you know, I've personally crossed at Minco and just technically not used the crosswalk on the other side, and a lot of people do it, because people walk up from, you know, Wintergreens area, past Minco, and then just straight across into Quick Trip. So, I mean, it's pretty dark there. So if you put a light at 401 there, that's not gonna solve that. But, I mean, it's not, it's technically jaywalking, but people do it. I mean, eventually it's gonna need lights there, I think. It's like a highway. So, I mean, if we're gonna go as far as getting the county involved with the other two, we might as well see if we can do 4 or 5 and then cost share it somehow.
George, what do you think?
What was the deal about not using telephone poles? There's a telephone pole right at that corner.
So Josie was talking about just on the south side of 401, I think right here.
Oh, on the other
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not for adding any poles. There's plenty of poles out there to make it work.
Right, there's one right here.
Yep, yeah, right there. So that would be where we just add on a light, yep. And then there's one right there, we just add on a light. And then I guess, I'm not sure exactly what's there for poles between McDonald's and Quick Trip, but I know there's quite a few to use.
So you're looking at about 1,000 a light.
Yeah.
Well, that would solve the problem for that whole
Mm-hmm.
corridor right there.
For those two lights, because some of the poles, we were not able to, Connexa said they couldn't put.
The ones I
lights on.
looked at on the south side of Heritage, we cannot use.
Okay,
No, I didn't check, I didn't go past and go
Sure.
from Quick Trip to McDonald's. I didn't
Sure.
check into those poles and look at what was there, you know, if they were usable or not. But I know the poles by 120 and 309, none of those poles we can use.
sure. Yeah, I guess for $1,000 a piece roughly, I think it's cheap public safety, and we're gonna need them anyway. Worst case, if they have to come down, we can put them up somewhere else. Or even sell them at that point if it comes down to that.
Well, then I can reach out to Conexus and find out if those poles are usable?
Yeah.
If there's poles there that we can use?
Yep,
Yes,
yeah, I think that's a good approach,
401 corner for sure.
yeah. And then maybe in the meantime, we could reach out to the strip mall somehow and see if, I don't know if that's even an option, or if they just do it just to do it. I don't know.
We can definitely ask.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to ask and find out on those ones that are further to the east there. But yeah, I mean, as far as like 309, we can't use the pole there, so we have to put the pole up, so then we're talking, that you're not
Yeah,
talking.
no,
about
not
putting
even
it
worth
there,
that,
right?
no.
So
No.
you're just talking 401
And then 400 and whatever poles we can use between Quick Trip and McDonald's. I mean, just to get like value light out there for cheap for now, you know? And then when we do the traffic control, they're gonna be putting up different poles, so then they're gonna have to engineer that into the plans anyway, so. But if that's gonna be another 5 or 6 years, I mean, that's how many thousands of people walk and drive through there every single night? You know, it's a big risk not to have
Daily
adequate
count,
lights.
the daily count is 10,000 cars go through that stretch
Right,
per day.
so
I
probably.
don't know about pedestrian counts, if we actually, I don't know if we've counted that, but, and hopefully, I mean, I say that we won't hold them to those numbers because it hasn't been discussed at the board yet, but
Right.
hopefully that would be worst case scenario.
Those numbers seem low. I would have thought traffic was more.
Between 6 in the morning and 6 at night.
Yeah.
I mean, I sat at the intersection by the school there trying to get on the 5 going
Yeah,
east, and I sat there for, I ain't kidding you, I timed it, it was 10 minutes.
I believe you.
And that's why I've always been a push for lights, not a roundabout, because it does not stop traffic. Roundabouts don't stop traffic. It slows it down, but it doesn't stop it.
Well, why doesn't staff reach out to Conexus, find out more information about the poles going from Quick Trip to 65? I'll reach out to the county engineer and see if he can find if they have a lighting infill plan for the whole stretch and see where they're at, and then go a little bit farther and say specifically at 400 and 401, is there any interest in the county cost sharing with us and doing an agreement to get some lighting for safety?
And then potentially if we do others. I mean, I would think they'd say, yeah, we'd be interested in cost sharing to add lights there. I mean, otherwise, when they do that whole project, they're gonna have to pay for all of it anyways, aren't they? So the fact that
The
we're,
intersection would probably be a 1/3, 2/3, because we have one leg, they have two legs of that
Oh, sure.
intersection. So it would be cost shared.
okay,
Again, those details haven't been ironed out, but likely it would be a 1/3, 2/3 cost share.
Any other thoughts? All right,
Oh, sounds good. Good plan.
thank you.
all right, moving on to E2, Sound Downtown.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. So I've had a little chance to do more research on sound equipment. And I know last time we talked about maybe some Bluetooth options and linking up some smaller speakers downtown and trying to find a cheaper option. I did find an article kind of talked about the difference between Wi-Fi and Bluetooth speakers. And so the Bluetooth speakers, they have less length, like from the source of the audio. So like you can only be like max of 30 feet away from the source point. So if we have speakers stretched out down Main Street, you know, if it's from a laptop, a fixed laptop, or from a wireless device, a cell phone or whatever, you know, it's only gonna work at certain speakers at a time, so it's gonna be all chopped up. So I just don't think that's a viable option. I guess the only other thing is, in researching different types of sound systems, there's like a single point system where it's like lots of sound at one point going out to a large area, which you would have at like major athletic stadiums and stuff, which, you know, at that one point, the sound would be really intense to carry down both sides of the street. So I don't know if that'd be a great option either. So the one where we'd have kind of the wireless transmitter and it would go, you know, down the street is really, I think, the better option if we were to pursue it. However, there's not really a lot of options for people that do that. I did find one other company. They're based out of Massachusetts and they have dealers, and there's one in Minnesota, and I contacted them. I think the dealer was in Winona, and I kind of gave them the same information I gave that other company that had quoted us at the 15 to 20,000, and they haven't gotten back to me with a price yet. But she said they mostly do like football stadiums and stuff. And she said a lot of that too, like I said, you know, it's coming from one point and it's going out. But she said there's other ones that they've done where they've got a couple of speakers on one side of the field and a couple on the other. But she did say there's the one town they had one guy that's like, I live 1.5 miles away from the stadium, and when they're, you know, having a football game, I can hear it plain as day. So I know it's maybe dependent on how we would set up the volume levels, but I think their speakers are a little more higher powered than that other company I found. But I was not able to find any wireless packages. Most of everything that I found was a wired system like you would put in when you're initially building a complex, where you'd be able to have multiple speakers, but they're all hardwired. And so that's not really a great option downtown either, without having to rip up sidewalks and other infrastructure. So unfortunately, I didn't find anything that was a cheaper option than the initial one I had found.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's probably time to move on from that discussion.
Well, I'm on Amazon right now, and there's you can get a Bluetooth repeater here for $50, and you can hook, I think, 4 devices to it up to 300 feet. So that would be maybe a Bluetooth option. You know, you could have 4 Bluetooth speakers, 300 feet, 150 from each side from where the repeater is.
Do you think it's gonna get delayed to where you're not gonna hear it simultaneously, though?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's built for that, so.
Yeah, so there was, in the article I had found that there's audio latency around 50 milliseconds slower than in the Wi-Fi. So the farther you go down, there's gonna be more lag. So from speaker to speaker, it might sound a little bit choppy. I mean, we're not going a super long distance, but there's that possibility. I guess with personal experience with Bluetooth, if like on a windy day, if I got like AirPods in or something, it kind of breaks up the signal too. So that's something I don't know how it would work on a bigger speaker, but I know like in headphones, I've had issues with that on a windy day, or if you get something between you and the speaker, it kind of breaks up the signal. So
I had other concerns other than just the music, and that is how many people live in the apartments above the retail that we have on both sides. I know there's a few, and then we have the creamery. There's people that live up above that. I think they should have input on whether they want to listen to music. I mean, you might have some people working nights and, you know, they don't want to sit out on the deck they got above the creamery and listen to music. I mean, there's lots of concerns. I'd prefer, if we went this direction in the future, to have a public hearing on it or something like that. At least send out letters to everybody within hearing distance. I mean, that'd only be fair.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I still think I don't care if it's $200 or if it's $20,000. I just, if we're trying something for $200, it's $200. If it don't work, it's thrown out the window. It's not, and I kind of agree with you, George, and you're gonna probably have 80% of those people are gonna say, no, I want it. And so I think let's just push it down. One time I'll say, let's kick the can down the road. Let's just kick this can down the road, and if somebody brings it up and wants to discuss it, we can at that point. I just don't think we need to waste any more time on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking the cost is, I mean, I was just looking for something that reminded me of a small town, and that was one thing that did, so, but I don't think it's not worth the cost, and I don't know that it's worth the hassle necessarily of irritating some people to do it, so. Not that anybody would necessarily be irritated about it, but just the hassle factor for Jordan, and we've got bigger fish to fry than that, so. I'm okay if you wanna cross that off your list.
Yeah, no, that's
and move
fine.
on.
And when I was looking too, like, there was a lot of articles I came across of towns that had did it, and most of them had cited that original company that I had
Yeah.
found, so, like I said, I didn't really find many other options for it, so. it's kinda-
Yeah, and if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it right, otherwise, you know, if you have issues, I mean, nobody's gonna wanna have choppy music playing, and I mean, there's nothing worse than that. You wanna talk about annoying, that's, really irritating, so. Yeah, I'm good with moving on from that. Any other discussion on that topic? Moving on to E3 then, brush chipping discussion.
Mayor and council, I was asked to research a little bit on chipping brush. So the one option would be to rent a chipper from Crawford's Equipment for $880. That would be for a week. That chipper can handle up to 7 inches. Material, another option would be to purchase a used wood chipper, and they range from 27 to 45,000, but they handle bigger material, up to 12 inches. A third option would be to have Rivard Landscaping come out and chip it on site, and that would be a $5,000 minimum charge for an 8-hour shift, and then $600 an hour after that to have them chip it on site and take it back.
So Matt, how much was it for a week rent?
$880.
Okay, so let me ask you this, $880 in a week. How much wood could you chip in a week?
I kind of thought about that question today, and I looked at the pile that we have there now, and I bet it would take 2 days to chip that pile.
Okay, and well, how much is it labor cost to do it?
Well,
I mean, it's ballpark. I mean, if you're paying the guys $30 an hour, I'm just grabbing a number out of the hat. So you got roughly 20 hours. So you got $300 a day, just roughly grabbing that. So you got $600 for 2 days to brush that pile up. You could have that pile, I don't care if we give them to the residents if they want them, they're more than welcome to them, I don't care. We're not getting rid of it. So if we did, even if we said we rented it for a week, so you got 1,200, plus another 1,800, sorry, I'm slow at my math, $2,600. If we could let our residents bring that brush pile, you're gonna have to either say, we're done for now, when the pile gets big enough that you can't handle it, I got no problem with doing that. Them
Well,
renting it.
and last week, we decided that, or, well, not last week, but the last meeting that you were working, we decided to take the brush, but the brush you have there now is just from the city doing tree trimming and stuff.
oh,
like
there's
that
been people who've
primarily,
brought
right?
brush in.
There has been?
Yeah,
So
people brought brush.
we started to charge for that though, right? Or how do we, because we talked about charging for it and implementing kind of some way to do that we were charging so much per truckload or something that would match what they were
Mayor, the-
taking from.
Staff was under the direction that we would accept it for 1 month and then evaluate.
Oh, is that
So-
what
so
we
we
decided?
have-
I thought we were
Yeah.
planning
No.
to charge for it.
No, that is.
It
because-
was talked about
see.
possibly charging,
Okay.
but it's to see how much we get in, to see what kind of potential issue of
Okay,
getting
you
rid of
just
would
wanted
be.
to see,
So
okay.
we'll be collecting it for another 2 weeks, and then we'll be bringing it back. It'll probably go back to the next committee of the whole of how much we have.
Mm-hmm.
Here are some options, how we could accept
Okay, yeah,
payment. So
I
that's
forgot,
coming.
I forgot that we were gonna do that, so, so anyway, so I mean, that is just not the city stuff, that's some of the city stuff and then
There
some
is
of
city
what
brush
they
there
brought.
right now
Okay.
too, yeah.
And then
So-
plus we're getting rid of, the city's getting rid of their
Yeah,
brush chips.
right.
We're giving the chips to the residents if they want them.
Well, Matt was saying though, when they chip that, it's not like,
This is this small material, it's not like you're gonna go, it won't look like a bag of wood chips you go and get, because the material that we're chipping is smaller, so it's gonna, the chips are gonna be a lot smaller. They're not, I mean, some of it is just really, like thin brush, it's gonna, some of that's just gonna turn to dust.
Yeah, which is fine.
We'll compost it.
That's
And
what
that
I
can be
thought.
composted in at that point. And the larger ones, people are gonna wanna take. I mean, somebody, 7 inches is huge.
Yeah, but we only take 3. Ours is
I
up to
thought you
about-
said this one would take up to 7 inches.
It would take up to 7 inches, the chipper would, yeah, but I think we're just accepting up to 3 inches.
Pop
of
can.
Pop can
Pop
size.
can size, yeah, right.
So I know last time we talked about a sponsorship advertising thing, and I still think that would be an option. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look into that, but if we're gonna have an event for a brush burning thing and some company, like a tree trimming company that has a chipper, wants to advertise at that event or advertise at the pile all year long for tree trimming, I would almost guarantee that someone will do it if they have to take care of the brush at the end of the year. I would almost guarantee it, because anybody that brings tree branches to that site are probably sick of dealing with trees, so a tree service is gonna be all over that opportunity to have their sign at that pile. In turn, maybe people would call them to just handle it instead of them having to do it themselves. So I mean,
Councilmember Merrill, we do have that on the list to look into
Yeah.
further, and that'll come forward with the rest of the information about how much we've collected. Here's some cost options. I think we will also have to look at, depending on what people bring, if the DNR has restrictions on how far that can go, because if the company is, let's just say by Bram, I don't know if they'll be able to haul that without us being picky on what type of wood we're receiving, those kind of logistics. So we do plan to bring more of that information forward. We don't have it tonight, though.
I got no problem looking into it, but I still don't think that's a good idea. We're not in the business to promote other, I mean, we are in the business to promote other businesses, but I don't think we need to start adding liabilities. You gotta remember, there could be a lot of liability issues. As much as you don't think there is, there is. If one person feels like they can sue you for something, they're gonna do it. You don't wanna open up that can of worms. I still think for $2,600, if they can do that in a week's time, renting that and chip up the brush, and probably 90% of it will probably end up being thrown in the compost, and which is good for the compost anyway at that point.
We typically run out of dirt, don't we, or get close to running out of dirt every year anyway, so, I mean,
Yes.
so, yeah, I don't think it's a horrible idea to put it in the chipper and compost it, like you're saying.
I just
Steve.
like to see how many times a year that, at 26, if it's $2,600 a month, that adds up to a lot.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean.
How much of that pile do you think was city stuff that we've done, or?
I would say the majority of the pile is city stuff right
Okay,
now, yeah.
Okay.
Do we have room to separate it so we know what the public's bringing in compared to what the city
Yeah,
has?
it's separated, we're keeping an eye on that.
What has the city done with theirs in the past?
Well, we have hauled it down the Rivard, just hauled it down there, the brush that we've gotten. Years ago, we did burn it, but the process lately is to just load it up when we get time or get enough of it and just haul it down Rivards and let them have it and just pay to have it taken care
What's
of.
the charge for that?
I want to say, I think it was $100 for a dump truck, $60 for
Trailer.
a trailer and a truck, and then was it 35 or something like that for a pickup truck, if I remember right?
plus staff time, so that's probably gonna be just as much if you were to haul it versus chipping it.
Maybe less, it's hard
Yeah.
to say. Yeah, if we can keep them piles separated, and I like the 1-month trial, and I'd like to see it limited to maybe spring and fall, for a 3 or 4 week period, and not have it available all the time.
See, I
That
think
way
the
people
problem
can
is though, if
plan.
you get a storm or something like that, then
That's
people are
the
gonna
problem.
need to
That's
use it.
when people need to
you
get
know?
rid of their brush.
And you
It's
can't,
definitely in the spring, definitely in the fall, and sorry to interrupt you guys, but it's definitely 100%, it's gonna be storm related.
Well, can we open it up for storms that obviously there's a need for it?
We've done that even in the past when the storms have been bad. We've had brush brought in.
I think that just confuses people though, if
Yeah,
you,
right.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I think to be honest, if you're gonna accept brush, you might as well just accept it when the compost site is open and you accept everything else.
Okay.
Otherwise, there could be the potential for confusion, then staff's gonna take calls and questions, and that adds up as well. So I think it would make sense to accept it the whole season.
I guess,
I mean, we don't have to make a decision on this tonight or anything, it's more just for information, right? I mean, we can judge when the time comes, deciding, okay, is it gonna be cheaper for us to just haul it down and, bring it down there, or is it gonna be cheaper for us to just, chip it and make a decision more at the time when it actually needs to be made, right? So,
It'll be on the following, the June committee of the whole meeting.
okay, sure.
I'd still like to see if we can get some companies involved. I understand your point, Steve, but if you think about it, for Illuminated Isani, Connexus Energy is sponsoring and they're advertising, so couldn't Excel come after us for that? How about our plow trucks? If we use International, couldn't Mac come sue us because we're not using
now
their
you're
truck?
splitting hairs.
Well, right,
There's
but
a
it's,
big difference between the sponsorship of Illuminate Isani and having a brush pile burn.
how so? It'd still be an event.
Because people can actually get burned at a brush fire. I mean, you gotta, it's a different thing about being Illuminate Isani. It's a different insurance, whole scam, I don't wanna say scam,
Sure.
don't get that, sorry, that came on me wrong. It's a different scenario. Just like the rodeo, just like rodeo jubilee days. You have to have a rider policy for all that. Now, you're gonna get a policy to burn a brush pile, and somebody's kid gets burned in there.
So-
And next thing you know, it's gonna be a lot higher adjustment on the insurance.
All Luke's talking about a sign to advertise a tree trimming.
Well, a tree trimming business, I don't care about, but if you're sponsoring ship of burning a brush pile, that's what I understood him
Well, no,
as.
I don't think that's what he's saying.
No.
He's saying that,
No, that's what I understood
he's
you
saying
as.
that in exchange for that company disposing of the pile of wood at the end of the year, they would get it to advertise with a sign at the compost site.
Next to the brush pile.
And I get that, but you know what's gonna happen? 30 trucks are gonna roll in that day. At the end of the year to get rid of their brush pile. That's a problem. You know, now we're gonna be putting a lot more wood in there. I mean, you understand where I'm going from? I get what you're getting at, I understand, now I understand that. But do you understand, when you give people an inch of rope, they're gonna take a foot. Always will.
I don't think a tree trimming company's gonna bring their stuff in, though. That's not what I'm saying.
they still
Well,
have to
that's what I
dispose-
Yeah.
understood him as saying.
No,
so.
They still have to dispose of it.
They still have to
where-
dispose of theirs. It's just that they're getting a sign out there during the year. In exchange, they come and clean up any brush that we have left over. I
And
think
having
that's,
that sign potentially would lead to a smaller pile.
That's
because-
fine, I understand that.
Yep.
It would- But I understood you as a burning of the brush pile and then allowing them to bring brush. I mean, that's the way I understood it.
Sure.
And that's the way most people are gonna perceive what you just said. That's what I heard it as, but,
Well,
yeah,
let's-
if that's the case, that's fine.
Let's get this trial period done, see what we're getting in the spring, and just evaluate it from there. How far do you have to haul that brush right now, the city's brush?
Down to Rivard, down there 22 and 65. That's where we're going.
20-minute trip,
Yeah, about that
hour
probably.
round trip, maybe?
Yeah, by the time you get in there, get unloaded and that kind of stuff, yeah.
And you're using Bobcat city equipment to load the dump truck and stuff?
Grab a bucket, the Bobcat, and a dump truck.
So it goes pretty quick.
It goes pretty quick. I mean, we try to stuff it and get as much in there as we can and push it down, so we're not, you know, because brush can kind of not, you know, a lot of air, so we try to
Right.
push it down.
I think that might be a more viable option until we can see exactly how much we're getting. It's definitely a lot cheaper.
I think it's gonna be more expensive to do it that way for staff time. I mean, if we have a bunch out there, how many dump truck loads do you think are there right now, if you had to guess?
Of residents.
5 to 6.
5 to 6, so
And that's
5 to,
since last fall, right? When's the last time you hauled?
Oh, that, we haven't hauled, would have been last spring we hauled, and we didn't get it all hauled away. But we didn't trim any trees this winter either, so,
okay,
So that's not just recent stuff.
yeah.
sure, so just call it 4 maybe for recent stuff, 3?
Yeah, you could, well, we didn't trim anything recently, so it's, everything that's there is stuff that was been there or got brought in, so we didn't do any tree trimming this winter.
Okay, but say maybe we come up with 10 truckloads total in a year. I don't think that's unreasonable. There's $1,000 right there, just in paying Rivard. And then you're gonna have, say, an hour to 2 hours per loads. You're gonna have 10 loads times, just call it 1 hour. That's times actual one staff, that's, how much is that? 300, and that's just assuming it's only one person. So it's probably gonna be 2, because you're gonna have one guy driving a dump truck, one guy operating a Bobcat. So multiply that by 2.
Oh, no, it's a one person
Okay.
loads the truck up themselves, and it's, Bobcat sits there, and they go down and make the round trip and come back.
Okay. So even still, you might be talking $2,000 just for that versus 2,600 to chip it and have it on site. I mean, I think it's gonna be pretty similar in cost.
That was just a 2-day. I thought that $2,700,
That was a week estimate.
but that
that's
was only with 2 days' labor
No, that was a week.
2 guys' labor, 10 hours a day each.
for 2 days.
No, that's
For the whole
7.
week?
for the whole week,
Oh,
plus the
okay.
rental, because he's got the piece of equipment for a week.
Okay,
That's a week's worth of 2 guys for $2,600.
so you're looking at about 5,000 $1,000 doing it twice a year,
And,
or
and that's
what's the
even,
plan?
and that's even figuring it at 100 hours, because that's 10 hours each.
Sure.
Just round math.
Yeah.
I think we just gotta wait and see what comes in, and then we'll know what the cheaper option is at the time, and we can make that decision when the time
I
comes.
think it could be a monitoring situation.
Yeah, yeah, either way, I don't think it's gonna be, to break the bank, and I think it's something that, and I heard so many residents ask to have that option to put brush there, so I think it's,
I saw 2 posts on Facebook in the last 3 days asking about where
Yeah.
do we bring our brush in Isani, so
yeah, yeah.
I
it's-
think it's a great service.
Yeah, there's a need for it.
As long as it's residents only.
Yep, residents of Isani.
And Jordan, I don't know, as far as the Oktoberfest type of thing that,
Yep.
oh, go ahead.
I don't think it's possible at this time in the year to plan an Oktoberfest.
Okay.
If we're gonna do it right,
Okay.
like, so, I'd like to plan for next year.
Sounds good.
And give us some time to figure out what it would look like and the liability, all of the logistics, I guess.
Right, that's fair enough.
Could we do a, could we do a spring and a fall one? So in the spring, maybe we get rid of what we got this year, and then in the fall, we would get rid of whatever's been accumulated over the summer. And, I mean, I don't know if we're gonna get too much in 2 years. Basically, it's gonna be 2 years basically until we have a bonfire. 2 seasons.
I mean, we could, usually we like to change it up just because of the seasons, but, we'll see, we can see.
I guess it'd also depend on what kind of entertainment you'd want, if you want a full band or something more low-key, you know, like a full band for the street dance, they range anywhere from 2,500 to 6,500, depending on how popular they are. So, I mean, if you're gonna add 2, I mean, that's a considerable amount of money to do 2 in a year. So just depends on what you wanna spend, I guess.
We could maybe, Mayor and Council, maybe iron out more of those details as we get into budgeting. If you want to add more funds into the recreation funds for the Parks Department to fund more, we can talk about a little bit there, where that's when we talk about programming, or if we are increasing programming, it increases the budget typically. Otherwise, staff's going to be fairly busy with what we have this year and the splash park. So next fall would be ideal to do it right.
Yeah, let's shoot for next fall then, and we'll kind of see how that goes, and then we can maybe look at the spring after that or something like that. But I don't think you want to overdo it too much with the same thing either, but,
I guess I'm just worried about having too much brush there by the time we burn, so that's 2 seasons worth.
Yeah.
I guess we don't know,
yeah,
so,
I mean, I don't think it'll,
Then always still haul it down the river.
yeah, right.
yep.
All right, moving on to E4, additional stop sign along Main Street. So I had a resident that asked me about this. She lives on Third and Main there, and she was complaining that people were flying down Main Street. She was wanting another stop sign somewhere between First and Fifth Avenue, and I don't know, I think that probably, probably would slow it down too much, in my opinion, but, I know Travis and you and Matt were kind of working on getting the speed sign up there, the flashing one, just to try to slow some people down. And we kind of do that more on just a complaint basis, don't we, where we'll kind of put something up like that. So, I don't know, I said I would bring it up and we could discuss it and see what you guys think. And then I did want to kind of follow up on the advisory speed signs that we talked about, putting, either out at the population signs or out on the corner where we put our information signs for like the street dances and stuff like that on 5 and 65 there. So, that was kind of a two-part question, I guess, but.
Well, dummy me, I always stop at Sport Shop.
See, that's the thing, is you
I
stop
always
anyway,
stop
right?
there. I automatically stop there, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because I think, I don't know, George, if you remember, years ago, I think there used to be a stop sign there.
There was. Yep.
It used to be one there years ago, and I just automatically, I stopped there, and I got people honking at me, I'm like, it's like, really? I mean, it's, that's
Well, and
because
see, I remember that you had said that before, and that's what I told her. I said, so somebody on the council stops there anyway.
Yeah, well, that's because the laundromat used to be there, and then there was a car wash there, and then the church had the daycare, or whatever you wanna call it, preschool in there. So there was always a lot of activities around there. So it's just a habit, and it's a hard one to break. But I personally, honestly, on these side streets, I don't, like Main Street, I don't see a problem with stop signs. I really don't. What was it, 2 weeks ago, Saturday, Sunday, 2 weeks ago, week ago, last Sunday. I was out at the park over by my house, and I was sitting there with my grandkids and watching them play, and some hunyuck, and I know where he lives, and I'm not gonna bring it up, went flying by there. And I'll tell you what, I wanted to grab a rock and throw it at his window, because he went flying by that park, and I'm not kidding you.
Mayor, I
that's-
did ask.
What's that?
Mayor, and Council, I did ask Jason Cook, the engineer, about, I wasn't quite sure where you were thinking for a stop sign, but just along Main Street. His recommendation was not to control speed by putting additional stop signs up there, because that is a main thoroughfare, and we don't have very many that don't have controlled stops, which is created that way. It'd be to turn it over to public safety, and whether we can put the sign, speed limit warning, maybe some squad cars there. If we get people who complain, maybe it's a certain times of certain people going, and they can patrol that a little bit more heavily during those certain times to control the people flying through if they are.
I guess, I mean, I've been driving that street for almost 15 years, and I don't think I've ever been speeding on that road. I'm not saying other people don't, but I don't think that's a high-speed area necessarily. I mean, Travis, do you see any speeding violations there?
Not so much, I know there's historical data, and historical just meaning not recently, but last, I want to say 5, maybe 6 years ago, under our old speed sign, I know we had that, and there wasn't the outliers there that there is in other places.
Right.
You know, granted, that's 5, 6-year-old data, we'll get some new data hopefully here in the next weeks or so, but yeah, I do know, it seems too fast, even people going 30, if you're just generically in any residential neighborhood. So when you're driving is different than if you're walking and pedestrians.
Sure. I guess I feel like I'm regularly stuck behind people on Main Street going like 20, so I don't,
You must be following me.
maybe.
Actually, if they don't want, if Jason is referring to not putting more stoplights in, I would not be opposed of us getting more of those portable speed limit signs. I'm serious.
Sure,
They work.
sure.
A couple of years ago when they had them on South Passage over here, I caught myself, even, as soon as I seen that thing blinking, even though I wasn't speeding, I slowed down. And he had it, I think Travis had it out there for a couple weeks, and even after it was gone, it stuck in my head. So I think getting a couple more of those things and moving them around more frequently will help. And I don't think that's a bad thing, and I think it helps our law enforcement to help control some of those speeding issues, and then we're not getting complaints from people.
So I assume those speed detectors, they log the speeds, and then you can get data off of them, and you can figure out where is a problem area and where isn't?
Yeah, in theory,
Okay.
that's how they're supposed to work. So
Sure.
we have one, and it's battery operated, so you get about, depending, 4 or 5 days out of it-ish. And we have a few, Matt's team has put up some posts, I think we have 3 out, I gotta order some more, but get different brackets. So like, we're gonna get one up in where you're discussing in that area, so you can move them around. They don't work as well in the wintertime, just because of the battery issue.
Sure.
So that's kind of the pain is that. So you have the 2 options is the static ones, meaning like you've all been coming into small town and they always have the static one, it's there all the time. If you drive that all the time and you always see it,
Yep.
the deterrent factor goes down, so it is nice. But I do think, as you're talking about that, as far as our traffic complaint, it's one of the biggest complaints that we get too, is, people in my neighborhood traffic issues. I do think that's the best tool we have, because we've had, for example, I've had issues on certain stop signs in a neighborhood. Well, and we actually assigned officers there, I think 2 hours a day for each of their shift or something, this is last year, and they had like 1 violation out of 5 days. But they're sitting in an intersection in a neighborhood, so that's not the right answer to solve those issues. I think this is one of the better answers to solve those issues. It changes behavior. It also makes the people that are complaining, at least it looks like us as a city, is trying to do something to help them out to make it safer. So I do think it's the most viable option, the best thing we have. I mean, there's other options that we still work with, and we still do, but I do like that speed sign option is one of the better ones we have.
How much are those things?
I just sent it over. No, it wasn't. It was more than that.
And do they also have a solar panel for them?
The ones I'd have to look it up here.
I feel like the one we bought before was like $3,500 or something like that.
Yeah, I think, I want to
That
say
was a while
35
ago.
for non and like, around 5,000. Actually, I pulled it up.
$36.95,
So is that for a trailer model?
No, that's for the,
The amount on
the
the
mounted
sign.
one.
Those are that expensive?
Including the hardware, or the software that we'd have to get for the first one was $4,145.
But that's something that doesn't, till they wear out,
Right.
it's a one-time buy and you're done, and it's that rotating thing. It's like Chief Meyer says, you get sign blind when they're there too long. It's just like campaign signs. When you have them in the same spot for 2 months, people forget about seeing them. It's there, they're done. That's why it's always a wise thing for politically to move your signs every couple of weeks, because then people say, hey, it moved, and now you're more fresh. And that's always been one of the things that they say, is they become sign blind, which they do.
Can we slow the speed down can we move it down to 25 miles an hour just for Main Street?
That's been talked about numerous times, even through residential neighborhoods, but we'd have to do a speed study, and what not typically, but what can be found, what could occur is that the speed limit would not get lowered, it actually could get raised if the majority of people were going that fast. There are some cities that do have like 20 mile per hour and such. Sometimes legislature changes, giving cities more authority to have control over that. I can definitely check in with the engineer and see if anything's changed.
That
but-
was the issue on,
Wendover?
no, that was the issue
Whiskey.
over on Whiskey Road, just by south of South Passage, because when you come into town, that actually is 55 until you get past South Passage and almost to that next intersection. Then it reduces to 30. So you're booking past South Passage at 55 until you get to that 30 mile an hour sign. And that was the question, is we wanted to lower it. And with the study, Jason says 9 times out of 10, it's gonna increase the speed, not lower it.
Mayor and council, we do have one more item, but then I have another item to add. I know we only have about 8 more minutes left.
So the last part of this, so I had kind of brought up before that I maybe would like to see a sign that says, drive like your kids live here, or something like that on our population signs. I know you talked to the county a little bit about that, and
I only spoke with the county engineer, and it wasn't his recommendation due to following MinDOT standards.
Right.
That's as far as
But,
we went.
but George, to your point about wanting to lower the speed in town, I mean, that, I would love to be able to do that to 25, because I think that would make a lot more sense, but the other option is to do something, I think, like that, like an advisory sign that, because the reality is, you can't move those around that often, and right now, we really only move it on a complaint-based thing. We don't have like a schedule where we move it, every few weeks to this spot and then that spot. It's great when someone complains, 'cause then we can do something about it, but I mean, that was, and I agree with you that people do get sign blind too, but I don't know, I mean, was there, I mean, do we want to go to the county? I'll go to the county and talk to them about doing something like that on our population signs if we wanted to do it, and see if we can get the county board's permission to do it. Is that something you guys would want me to do, or
Yeah,
you'd be interested in doing, or?
I would be willing to bet the county board would be fine with that.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea, and it's cheap relatively.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't cost a ton of money for a sign, I don't know, I mean, $100, something like that?
Yeah, it depends on the size, really. I mean, you're talking probably 50 to $100 a sign, maybe
Yeah,
depending on how
right.
big a sign you
What
want
do
to
we
get.
got? 3 population signs, 4 population signs, something like that? or
4 sounds right. 5?
five?
Oh, might one on Third Avenue up by Eklund's, yeah, there might be 5.
Oh, yeah, Third Avenue, yeah. So it wouldn't be real expensive to do, and I think it's just something, I mean, that was such a huge, that and the tree trimmings was probably the 2 biggest things I heard complaints on was, boy, people are driving too fast on my road, and, it's like, if that's what people are complaining about, I think we should at least try to do something
Sure.
about it, so.
I think that would send a lot better message than having a Green Step City sign and logo on there, so it's kind of a nice trade-off. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a community feel to see that, drive like your kids live here.
Yeah,
I think that's
right.
kind of a good
Right.
idea.
Okay.
Yep.
That, Main Street by the church there, could we post that as a school zone?
I'd like to make note on the record that Councilmember Carlson did attend the meeting at 5:48 PM tonight. Councilmember Carlson, we can create school zones, we just have to put it into our ordinance. We do have a couple other school zones, and then once it's
Main
approved
Street
by.
Right,
Drop
yeah,
it
that
to
would
20.
kind of solve that problem, wouldn't it? Yeah, and there's the
And it's all legal.
preschool there, yeah, right? Good idea. It's an awesome idea.
We can definitely look into that, bring that ordinance back for discussion to be added.
Yes.
Okay, well, you guys want me to go to the county and ask them about that, or
Yeah.
is that something we'd have to do, or?
Just, I think
Sorry.
it just
But-
gotta meet the reflective standards that the state puts in place, right?
Yep, correct, yep.
We don't have to ask the county necessarily to put
It's
something
ours.
on our, it's our sign, right?
If it's
Yeah.
our street, we don't have to ask them.
But
If it's in their right-of-way, we might have to technically pull a right-of-way permit to change signs, because actually the signs on Heritage County Road 5 are their signs.
Okay,
And how about the 65 too?
We've asked permission to put some, I think with the school zone at primary might be ours. But most of the signs on County Road 5 are their signs,
okay.
Is there
if not
one-
all.
Is there one on the county road heading, you know, that runs east and west over by Pine State Tree Farm? What's that?
Polk, Railroad Avenue.
No, on the other side of 65.
285th,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there,
County 55.
is there Antine city limit sign on that county road?
I don't know about that one. I know
I
going
drive
out on
every day and
5.
don't pay attention, so.
Yeah, right, yeah, I know. But,
Okay, well, if we could look into that more, and if I need to go to the county board, then I can go and ask.
Mayor, either way, it could either be yourself if you'd like to, otherwise I can reach out to their county administrator interim and make a request to go on their committee of the whole agenda, either way.
Well, let me know, I'll go up there and ask them about it and see if, because it sounds like their engineer is not gonna be supportive of that idea, so yeah, I'll go up there and talk to him about it if need be, so.
Okay. I'm gonna pass out an image for the quick discussion after, when you asked Jordan about the next item.
Okay.
Citywide garage sale.
Citywide garage sale, E5.
Yeah, so this topic came up at the last park board meeting. There were some residents that were asking about the citywide garage sale date. And I had reached out to the person that had coordinated the event in the past. She said she was no longer going to be doing it because the Scotsman wasn't going to sponsor the map and the advertisement for free anymore. So she was just telling people they had to kind of do their own thing this year. So it was kind of tight notice to try to pull something off this year, but we kind of kicked around at Park Board if that would be something council would want to see me take on as a city event. Basically, we would, through our new software that's not quite up and running yet, make it something that they would have to register for. Up to you if you would want to charge a fee, but basically they would just sign up their address, and we can ask certain questions during the registration process, but at the end of it, I would just grab all the addresses, put it on a Google map, put it on the Facebook page and the city website. Some of the other comments at Park Board was, I can't remember if it was Mora or some other nearby town that have like food trucks come in and kind of make it like a, hey, come to our town for the day and try to have, stuff going on, coordinating a larger event. I mean, not necessarily a huge event, but just have a little extra bonus to try to draw some people in if there's gonna stay the whole day and get some food from a food truck or whatever. So, just wanted to see what your thoughts were, if that would be something worth us taking on, or if you want to just leave it alone. So,
I know it brings a lot of people in town,
The rodeo.
and it's, and I think our residents appreciate it. I think we should look into it, what we gotta do.
It would be,
I think we need more information to roll through with it.
Look
But
at
I think
dates
it would be, I think
by
it's
surrounding
be
communities.
something looked into.
I think it'd be interesting if we planned it during the rodeo, or during that time, the rodeo stuff is usually Thursday through Sunday, and those are the garage sale days anyway. It'd be kinda cool if we had a citywide garage sale during that, so people could go to garage sales between events or whatever. And there's already food trucks and stuff here for that, so it'd be kinda interesting. But is that too much of a hassle?
yeah, I think people kind of always expect it to be that. I think it's usually the first Saturday in May, so I think that everybody was kind of planning on right away in spring. Not to say that we couldn't change the date. There was, through some other stuff we're working on, somebody that has the art studio, she was gonna try to do an art festival, so we thought maybe that was something that we could partner with, have something else going on to draw people downtown as well for something that she would have going on. So I mean, I would be kind of open.
Rodeo, the police department, I think, would be spread thin as it is.
Okay.
You add that extra amount of traffic, I don't know.
And it may be a hindrance.
Sure.
I traditionally citywide garage sales are in the spring.
Okay.
Yes,
Cambridge
I think Cambridge does theirs in the fall, yeah.
Less chance of rain.
More chance of snow.
All right, well, let's look into that some more. One, you want to squeeze it in quick, or?
No, I do not, Mayor. I am
Okay.
actually going to add it to the council agenda this evening,
Okay.
so we have time to discuss. If you could just hang on to that image. Thank
Okay,
you.
that sounds good. So do I have a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Motion carries 5-0.